churches or whatever. We had to go to take the refugees at that point because it was just a disaster. Garland, we started looking at vehicles. That's why we got the Hummers. And we use those every winter, every bad weather. We've got a deuce and a half and a 5-ton troop truck. We go through high water, rescue people in a certain area whenever we have those big floods. Just to maintain the other little things that he can do to find. One of the biggest prizes we got was a shelving for our storehouse, our warehouse. We hit the new warehouse we have. Unbelievable what they got to do, what he come up with this stuff, brand new. Some of it was not even unboxed. They said, if y'all want it, go get it. They spent a week up in Lawton, Fort Sill, just, they had to disassemble a whole warehouse. They said, y'all want it, y'all gotta tear it down. So they about 5 y'all went up there for a week. Saved the county about $80,000, and it was brand new. And we're utilizing it in the new big storage room and evidence rooms and things now. So that's just one of the many things. We could go on and talk about all kinds of things, but we don't get machine guns and bombs and grenades and rocket launchers. We can't get that, but we do get all kinds of things. One of the things he ordered one time was a de-icer. He thought it was just a de-icing something on the windshield of all the cars. It doesn't have the fine print. So when we got back here, it was for an A-10 attack plane. It was a
Let's go to a plane fire bomb.
de-icing. They'll let you have it.
Well, it's control. It's a little plastic thing.
Yeah. Do we still have it? We ever get back
Oh,
to
I sent that back.
it? It took us a while. Because you can send it back, but sometimes they're like, you got it, we don't want it back. But girl, once again, 30 years is a long time, I know, and I appreciate your work and your friendship and everything we've got to do together. This is a very solid man that dedicated this county, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Ready? I can't see a smile, but okay, thanks.
Thank you for having me, and I've been here quite a bit. I think I was the first employee to ask for a computer when I started. That was some time ago, but it's been a pleasure working here, and I thank y'all, Commissioner and Judge, for backing us and what we do, and the Sheriff for allowing me to do what I do, because there's, like you said, there's several hats you wear in the office. It ain't just one, and you jump in and help where you can. And my biggest, what I like to do the most is hunt on the military side for stuff that we can use. Like this morning, we're going over and getting a pretty heavy-duty trailer and a one-man lift that goes up so we can put evidence on our shelving, this new shelving he was talking about. So
Awesome.
all of that's, it's free, but it's the cost of us going and getting it. So
Right.
that's a good thing. So I've enjoyed it, and I plan on staying here a little longer.
Well, thanks for everything.
Garland, thank you for all you do to help us.
Yes, thank y'all.
You know, Sheriff, one of the other things that I think a lot of people don't realize is Garland got us a very nice and very large crane
Right.
that we have staged at the Precinct 3 yard, and we maintain it, keep it running, and use it from time to time on some stuff on road maintenance. But if we ever had a major problem where we had a roof cave in or something, that thing is standing by and would be tremendous. We didn't have one in the county.
No, never have had one.
And that thing is there, and it's there because Garland sought it out, and we crank it every couple of weeks and keep the batteries up on it. So in the matter of a few minutes, in an emergency, that thing be ready to roll and could be out
That
helping
was the
people.
intended purpose for this item, is for rescuing things. We all know in this area, the biggest thing we have is the flood, the tornadoes, the fires.
Yeah.
If you ever lived through a tornado or been recovering through some of that stuff, you have to have something heavy duty to pull things up. You can imagine the Olive Park School getting hit during the daytime with students inside, the collapsation,
Yeah.
the way the structures will fall. Just if not rescue, it's a recovery effort. And so that's why we have that, and a lot of other little neat things that we've done to get to the remnant that a lot of people don't realize we have, because we know if we need it, we have it. Instead of, the point where we gotta have it, we don't need it, we can't find one. That makes a big problem for all of us. Very much in tune with what's going on that side of it.
Very much.
Of course, the classic thing was that day that your tactical vehicle broke down, catered out to.
That old tire problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, the LEV, that's the 6-wheel armored vehicle, is the first one we got. Everybody called it the tank.
Yeah.
And, the reason why I call it the tank on the turret, we had over at Central Garage getting some oil change or something. And garage, knuckle busters at garages, they're always thinking, so the turret didn't have guns on it. So they welded, looks like a pipe, two of them. Looks like they're muffled, they just welded them up and we can put both of them in and we can take them out. And they look like guns. And we got more people asking, so those are real? We tell them, yeah, they're real.
Yeah.
And more people
Not
asking
guns, but they're
questions.
real.
Until the inspector come up from the government and they saw that, they about have cow. We didn't take them off, but we still have, we just didn't put it back on yet. It was good for show and tell.
That deal, 'cause when you pulled in behind sight, it was helping, it broke down there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it was on 287 Windthorst Road, and
Yeah.
the next thing you know, somebody's taking pictures saying that law enforcement is stopping cars in the harbor. It runs, what, maybe 45 to 50 miles an hour a good day.
We had a blowout.
It had tires. And
Is that what happened?
They're big tires, so they're tall tires.
Yeah.
It's heavy duty.
Had a blowout and Penaluna seen me and it hot, so he pulls in front of me. And it looked like, I had red blood on this thing, so it looked like I was pulling him over. But actually, he helped me, but get that, have some condition.
Well, you know, David, if we hadn't had those, kind of tactical vehicles that y'all have added to your fleet, Barry's a very close friend of ours that lives close to me, you know, he was flooding during 2015-16.
Couldn't
and
get out.
There was no way we could get to him. My truck wouldn't, none of our conventional vehicles would go. And I called David and said, man, I gotta have help out this way. And
Yeah.
here he comes, and those tires right up, you know, they're tall enough to stand the unit up over the water. So even though it's 5 and 6 foot deep, you still were able to go and rescue them and get them out of there, so.
And I had people ask me, why do y'all have a big armored vehicle like that? And I asked them, you ever been out in the country when somebody shooting at you with a rifle and hiding behind a mesquite tree? You know, it's a no-brainer. And the Hummers we have, they're not up armored Hummers. I don't care what the federal government yaps about military, police or military. If you're being shot at, I don't care if it's a Volkswagen I'm hiding behind or an armored vehicle. Because we've been there before. And when bullets zing by your head, you know, you're hoping that the next one's not got your name on it. So that's why we have those. And we did get an MRAP, and it was a brand new one. It come back from the Gulf War, well, not Gulf War, but the Iraq.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they put a new chassis under it, and the actual passenger side of it, you know, they take it from one to the other. It's got some bullet dings in some windows from being shot at in battles, but it was on a brand new chassis, and instead of sitting in the back, we were next up in line for one. It was we looked out to Sealy, down by Houston, and Garland actually drove it back. And that thing is, that's about a $750,000 vehicle. I remember that, some of that ballpark.
Well, they're 800,000.
And so that's, I couldn't imagine coming to court asking for $800,000 vehicle, you know, because.
I couldn't imagine you doing that.
No, I know, but I got common sense.
The gun range?
Oh, it's something else, our gun range, the building for the gun range we have out there.
Mhm.
We got that to the military for, it was 4 pieces, it's like a big prefab home building, and it got right on Fort Sill, and cost the county, I think, $15,000. They have it brought down here and set together. $15,000, it's about a $250,000 building. Air conditioning units for every section of it, and the whole thing. And we have them set at the gun range now, and it's been painted now too. It's a lot.
Looks good.
Yeah,
Looks
a lot,
real good.
a lot. We really benefited with it.
Great. Deputy Terrell.
He's beyond deputy now,
Sorry.
he's lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
No, I'm sorry.
Lieutenant.
He acts like a lieutenant. This guy's listening to him. He could be a Lance Corporal if people are gonna listen to him.
Yeah. All right. Once again, this certificate is presented to Sergio Terrell for 30 years of service to Wichita County. Congratulations on reaching your milestone service anniversary. Through your hard work, dedication, and loyalty, Wichita County is able to provide quality service to the citizens of Wichita County. In honor of your service, we are pleased to offer you a choice of anniversary awards. Please accept your gift as an expression of our gratitude for the contributions you will continue to make every day. On behalf of the Commissioners Court, we commend you for your service and wish you every success as you continue your career toward your next milestone. Your commitment to Wichita County is deeply appreciated, Sheriff.
We'll get a picture real quick. There we go. Get your mug shot.
All right. All right, there we go. All right.
I met Sergio when he first started working here back in the old jail on the old side. And Sergio, he's a quiet guy unless you know him. And he's got a sense of humor too. And he had some come up with some health issues he had that we all stood behind him and supported him with. And he's still, he's almost at the finish line with it now. So we've been utilizing him. He's assigned to the patrol division, but we've got him helping Garland do some things and just a little bit of everything he's taken care of. But he's obviously another one of our most dependable people we have in the sheriff's office. One of the most honest men I've ever met in my life. He will tell you the truth, whether you like it or not. And not only that, but in his normal duties, whenever he's not been on the light duty, so to speak, he's a fugitive hunter. And this is one of the top fugitive hunters I've ever seen in my career in law enforcement. If the guy's out, he can find him. He will find him. He will not stop till he drags him back to jail or puts him in jail. And it's a fun doing that kind of thing. It's kind of a cat and mouse game for us, but it's also deadly. And so he's been able to survive all kinds of things with that. And he's just been he's another one of them all around GP kind of guys. We just can't call him GP because everybody thinks about the Garland for that side. 30 years is a long time. I know you got some more to go. So
Hopefully another 30.
get to tell them.
Well, yes, sir. I mean, it's been an honor working for the citizens of this community. It is a great honor to work for the Wichita County and Wichita County Sheriff's Office. Kind of got to know a lot of good folks. He was my sergeant in the jail, and my corporal, so
Yeah.
we got a little gray hair going.
When he was brand new, he was a very timid young man, but he was always a hard worker.
Yeah. And he hasn't stopped it.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Sheriff, I've got to say, Sergio, you know, God is with you. There is no doubt about that. And I can attest to the fact that I've cooked as much fish as anybody you'll ever know, and I've got the rig to prove it. And it'll get up and get it. And I'm telling you, they came over the top of our heads. I wore out my son, which is physically fit like nobody's business, and other young men. And when I got to the car wash from leaving your event, I began to cramp, and I thought, I'm not gonna make it home. It was unreal, the amount of people that came and supported you and what they think of you, and so I wanna say that, but I know God's hand's with you, Sergio, so.
And I want to thank y'all for all your help for that too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And he's the kind of guy, you don't have to worry about him. He just goes and does his job. Doc Garland, the two chiefs, they just go. They just do their thing. I don't have to sit there and second guess them. I don't have to think, what they're doing. I don't do that. These guys are grown men. They know their jobs. They do it very well.
Even the bees came out to support you that day.
Yep, that's right.
That's true. Yes, that's true. Thanks again, sir.
Righty. Nice way to start the meeting off. I'd like to ask if there are any public comments, anyone on the phone or in the audience. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. We're going to take under consideration the consent agenda. I do want to change in item number 11, the amount there is listed at $54,000, and we're going to change that 54 to 52 on that item.
And I had a question on that, Judge. I noticed in looking at the invoice for that expenditure, Mark, there's not a credit for that.
The air conditioner,
No,
or
the
the penetration, the electrical.
We've got several more to build them, so we've got that one. We got one at precinct 1. We got another one at precinct 1 that we're still searching, so they'll credit us back at the end.
We will be sure we have enough to trade that out at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that we're not sitting there trying to get the money back.
No,
Wind up-
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And Judge, I had a question on number 9 as well. Do we have a calculation of that expense in our COVID reimbursement fund monies that we anticipate?
I think I can explain that one.
Go ahead, or explain.
I did put a calculation in the agenda packet. I have the total expenses of that was, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it was over 600,000. And we're expecting a little over 300,000 in reimbursement. And then there was, I believe, was about 47,000 in the fund already. And that's where the difference of the 305, 364 comes from. But it's, those calculations are in the packet.
And the purpose of this loan is,
Fund equity is negative in that fund, so this is just strictly an accounting issue. So we're gonna do the loan from the general fund to cover the fund equity, to bring it to 0 for year-end 2020, and then it'll be reversed. There won't be any cash
okay.
being moved. Those are both of those funds are also used at the general bank account, so it's the same bank account. But there won't be any cash being moved.
Will there be a negative displacement? Because those funds originally come out of general fund, correct?
Yes, correct. I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Well, we'll fund the COVID fund,
Right.
but all of the money originally laid out, when you calculate the 600,000, those are dollars that flowed out of the general fund to compensate the expenses we incurred through COVID.
Correct.
So at some point, they'll reimburse the general fund when we have those funds in hand, correct?
That's correct, yeah, this, it'll go to the fund 260, which is where we're recording the expenses.
Okay.
Curtis, you said something about the amount we spent was around 600,000,
So far, yes, in 2020, yes.
and you're anticipating a repay of only around 300,000?
As of right now, that's what we've got. Chris could probably answer these questions better than I could, but as of right now, we've got, that's what we've got eligible. And again, that, I believe that distribution form is in the packet as well. You can look at it, but that's what we've got eligible right now. There may be more coming to cover more expenses in 2021.
The only
This
reason
is strictly for 2020 to bring that fund equity back to 0, because it's negative right now for auditing purposes. It can't be negative.
And
We have to do it along with it.
And I understand that part of it. All I'm worried about is when we went into this whole deal and we said several times in Commissioner's Court that we thought we were going to be reimbursed for all the money that were spent on the COVID expenses. And that's the first time I think I've heard anybody say, we got 600,000, we're probably going to be reimbursed 300,000.
Well, no, we anticipate a full reimbursement at this
Okay.
point. Yeah.
That's why
It's
just
slow.
clarifying for me.
The 300,000 is what we're expecting for 2020, but there should be more coming in 2021 from what I understand.
Okay.
I thought we'd already gotten some other reimbursements. And we didn't wind up with your worksheet on the way it got settled there. Or at least I didn't in there, but,
I didn't see it.
I think probably what we ought to do is maybe ask Chris, give us a rundown. I realize that's a little bit out of your lane.
Yeah, I'm sure he can answer
Yeah,
this better.
because there's been some other, I know we're behind, I know they're way behind when they said they would reimburse.
But that's, yeah, it's strictly an accounting issue. No cash is gonna be moved, on those funds, so.
Okay. Anything else on consent?
Judge, just an update on item 7, the approved changes and updates on the CTIP grant road priority list. That was merely adding some things that have shown up since the freeze event, that there were a few other areas that we want to address, so we added them to the list. It's just keeping it up to date.
If you've got some of those, it doesn't hurt to submit those. I know it's after what they said was the closing date.
The ones that I added have been submitted. We did that early.
All right.
So if we are seeing some new development on roads, we can go back and try to add
Sure.
those?
Correct. Sure. It's until we, till we exhaust the funds. And I talked with Mr., is it Wolf? I think so, with TxDOT last week and updated him on where we were and what we were doing. And so, yeah, we can continue as the project goes along. We can add and remove. I don't guess there's any need in removing one, but if you've got one that shows up that you might want to do some work on, put it on the list. We'll probably do that, Nancy, every 2 or 3 weeks, just send an updated list.
You included some, Barry, and I included
Yeah,
one,
we
I
added
know.
some.
Yeah, I included
yeah.
one.
Yeah, so it's, every couple of weeks, we'll send in a revised list and get it approved. That way, if they're on the list and they're approved, we're good. We just don't want to do one that's not on the list. Because you're not supposed to do any work on it until you get it on the list, get it approved. So just kind of stay on top of that and turn it into Nancy mainly because she updates that thing every so. That'll go on throughout that program.
And there's certificates you need to sign for each road.
Yeah. Anyway, just an update on that.
Motion to approve the item number 11.
Second.
Second, or you got a second? You got a second.
Yes, got it.
Any other comments? Thanks, Sheriff.
Okay. Appreciate y'all.
We have a motion by Commissioner Beecham, second by Commissioner Finnegan, to approve consent agenda with the change to item number 11 and change the amount from 54,000 to 52,000 change. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 1 is to review and approve the regular bills for payment.
We looked through them. I'll make a motion, we pay our bills.
Yeah.
Second.
Any comments or questions, anyone in the audience or on the phone? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. In the motion by Commissioner Finnegan and seconded by Commissioner Watts. Okay, item number 2 is discuss and consider take action to approve up to 38 hours of overtime for emergency management coordinator for February 15th through 21st, 2021, due to the winter storm disaster in accordance with Court Order 12.12.819, allowing exemplary Stark County personnel working over 40 hours in support of a disaster to be paid at their regular hourly rate. If approved, this will be paid by transfer from non-departmental contingencies to line determined by the county auditor with possible reimbursement from FEMA. Mr. Burgoyne?
Those were hours worked in preparation for the storm and after response and after the storm was over.
Now, is this a modification, Lee, from what we originally saw?
No. No, it's not.
Well, I thought there was something in question about before the emergency was declared.
I didn't have a question about that.
I
I
did.
think there was some question about that, whether it was from the point the disaster declaration was signed forward or previous to that or whatever, but, typically, you can do a disaster declaration. We don't do them in advance of disasters here, because most of the time we don't know they're coming. But like in the Gulf, for hurricanes, they'll do disaster declarations, 3, 4, 5 days before the storm hits, and it's just for emergency protective measures. And that's basically what we did on this one. We got notification that was coming, and we started doing emergency protective measures several days in advance of it.
Did y'all receive this motion from, or order, I guess, back in, I'm not sure when it was, but of 12, where the motion was made and accepted to pay when it conformed to the Texas Department of Emergency Management for exempt employees to be paid their hourly rate when it's over, or through these typical situations, I guess.
Well, in my interpretation of that has always been, and we did that because our personnel weren't, unless you had it in your disaster policy, that they would get paid. It's always been the disaster isn't a disaster until the declaration is made. And while I appreciate Lee's work, and especially on a holiday, the disaster didn't get declared until the day after that work was performed. It's not a lack of appreciation of that, but I think we'd be in a constant fling of what is disaster preparation. That's his primary job, is disaster preparation. So I think that 8 hours shouldn't be counted, the rest of it, I went through there, and I think that's acceptable. But
What would that new total be then, Judge?
What day was the disaster, Clark?
16,
16th. So really, the gist is everything is only at 8 hours.
yes.
The things that we did would not normally be things that we would do on a daily basis. If we didn't, we didn't have notices this time was coming. We did it preparation.
Well, that being said, I also think across the board, all the precincts, I mean, we also did things that we didn't normally do, so, I mean, that is part of our job, and that is part of why we work for the county. I'm not saying I'm against it or anything, I'm just telling you, I think that is part of our job to do whatever we have to do for the county.
But the discussion is only for an exempt employee, isn't that correct,
Yes.
Judge?
Yeah, you don't have a choice on your hourly.
Yeah.
You had them work, but if you had them work that Monday, they would still not exceed 40 hours, even though they got 8 hours holiday time in addition. You're gonna pay overtime, it's gotta be worked out, it's not total hours.
Yeah, the whole thing that had was Monday, that Monday was a holiday. So I don't know that anybody would work that holiday if it wasn't a storm.
And does that pay go at straight time or overtime?
Straight time.
So the question is then, we're looking for 38, and Judge, you said it should be 30.
Yes, sir.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
And quick question. I don't know, the standard, our policy before this, you sign it, once you sign that order, anything before that has not been included in that
No,
disaster.
We have not paid that, no. It's always been because there is preparation, and it's often done by Lee's office and by Road and Bridge, some of the things by the sheriff. But his exempt personnel is pretty thin. There's a sheriff and 4 others, I think, is all we, no, 3 of them, so.
But isn't there a rule, Mick, and maybe Tracy can help us here, but isn't there a rule about the pay period? So if I'm gonna comp off, or that, if that occurred, it has to be within the pay period? I don't know where I'm,
Well, it does if you're on 80 hour or you're on 40 hours, if you have additional time work, if you do it during that same work period, somebody got 12 hours one day, if you can give them that extra 4 off during that 40-hour period, fine, or during the 80-hour period. If it goes beyond that, then that 4 hours becomes 6 hours in comp time. And there are limits
okay,
of
I
how
knew
much
that, yeah,
overtime you can have for regular employees and for law enforcement at different levels.
okay.
Does that sound right, Ms. Jennings?
Judge, I hear the words that you're saying, but in terms of an exempt employee, you're not really certain about that? So-
Okay, no, the exempt employees normally wouldn't receive pay,
Okay,
other than FEMA allows, if your policy allows for that, and given on some fires and disasters, the amount of hours being put in by those personnel, we thought that was a little bit fair. I had never forgotten, when I first came back to States, went to work in Florida, we had a hurricane, And the chief technician and I were the only two exempt employees, and everybody else made more money than we did for about a month. Because they got overtime. We did.
Well, Judge, I think we originally adopted that policy of comping that off during that pay period because we wanted to prevent from building large books of comp time, because we had to address that, and we went through that. I think that's where that policy came from, so.
Well, the
Yeah.
policy of not, trying to pay it off, we didn't want anything.
Yeah,
over
right.
like
We
that.
didn't want to build that
We
book.
paid out better than $1 million when we
Yeah.
settled those books. But what we did this policy was to try to be fair to our exempt personnel, that when they worked those hours, and we debated it, sometime when that was done, I think there was a discussion, okay, was it if they worked over 10 hours more, then should they get paid or not? And we drew it at 40 hours and do that. But the intent, in my mind, certainly was that it was after, hours worked after the disaster declaration was signed.
Okay, then I have if this would have been on a Sunday and it would have been a tornado and you didn't actually get that declaration signed until the following Monday, so if he was working all day on Sunday during this tornado, it'd still be at free.
Yes.
Because it does take time to overlap to you to get a
Well,
court order
well,
signed.
But
I mean, I spent a good part of my
Me
career
too.
at the city as an exempt employee, and I never got a single dime for hours worked overtime.
Yeah, I
And
mean, me
worked a
neither.
lot of-
I mean, that's
I think
that's part of
it's a
it.
generous policy to come back and allow that after the disaster declaration. I think the county's being
Okay.
generous in that respect, so.
Well, but that doesn't, the 2012 Commissioners' Action to me, it addresses what Mickey's saying, that it doesn't have to be a declared disaster in order to be a disaster. And so a tornado hits Saturday and Lee's hooked up Saturday and Sunday, that we're calling a tornado a disaster, or we're calling whatever the instance is, but it's not necessarily a declared disaster.
Well, maybe we need to clarify that, but having tried to work it out to give what Commissioner Beecham described as generous, is not too many people.
Sure, I don't.
And part of that, it's not, and this way, it makes it, we can file for reimbursement for those hours.
Under the disaster declaration.
But if it doesn't reach the level of a FEMA disaster, so it's got to go above our heads, state and then federal. But I would support it if we never got above our level and we have that disaster declaration in place. Then we could do that. But I think to have it just sitting there as an open blanket might be less than the most responsible way to look at it.
We were declared for emergency protective measures only for the freeze. So those 8 hours would be comped by FEMA in the emergency protective measures. Because that's what they were. They weren't in response, they were in preparation. That's what the disaster declaration is. So those 8 hours during the holiday would be paid by FEMA. The rest after that wouldn't, but those would.
But you want to trade the 8 for the 30?
No, I'm just clarifying, what the disaster declaration is, because I think there's a lot of confusion about that. We're not getting paid for any roads or any damages to buildings, we're not getting paid for any of that stuff. We're only getting paid for emergency protective measures right now. But we've gathered up all those expenses and turned them all in, so that if the federal government does honor the governor's request to include other categories of damage, then all those expenses will be paid, 75%. But they will be, right now they're not.
Any other comments?
No, unless, it wouldn't be fair for us to be reimbursed for Lee's time if we're not paying Lee.
Well, no, if we file it, we get reimbursed and we don't leave that 8 hours.
Okay,
No, I agree with that.
good deal.
So, but for right here, right now, what we have, then,
In keeping with the policy that
Sure.
we have established. And then, yeah, if you file it in we get reimbursed, then that's a different subject. That's a different action item.
Clarify then, because so Lee's gonna go ahead and file for the 8 hours on the preparedness. And then will be another action item to come back to the court if that goes through.
That's approved.
Okay.
75%.
Okay.
They won't reimburse 100%.
But if we get to 75, we have to pay the money, so that's not a problem. Okay.
We need to
Motion by
amend.
Commissioner Watts, second by Commissioner Beecham, to approve payment of 30 hours to Mr. Moore for his work for the snowstorm disaster declaration. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. Item 3 is discuss and take action to approve AMG Printing and Mailing LLC quote number 12430 for 2021 county clerk's mass mail out and in-house three-up card, plus proceeds at a total cost of $24,851.69. You pay $6,000 per line, 100.490.3104, and transfer $18,000, $18,851.59 from non-departmental contingency. Ms. Bohan?
This is actually voter registration cards. At the end of the year, we have to mail out new voter cards. And so this is what this is going to cover. Is the printing, the mailing of the new voter cards, and then give us blank cards for the next year or 2 years to send out the new cards when applications come in. And I do have actually the money, it's in postage instead of separated out. Because when we were with Southwest Data, they printed the cards for free, and all we had to do was mail them out. Well, we're not there anymore since we're with Team, so this is it. And I would like to really use this company. They're the ones that helped us out last year with our mail ballot kits. I mean, I would send him an email, say, hey, I need to order them. He'd send me a proof within 5 minutes and have them in the mail within the next day.
We just pay them for proceeds and everything, like send out their permit or something.
Right, they would print them, send me a proof, I would prove it, they'll print them out, and mail them. We don't have a permit. We can't mail them anymore, we don't have a permit. But this is not until the end of the year. It'd be November, December, but I just wanted to go ahead and get it out there so we know that this expense is coming.
We have a motion and
So moved.
Second.
any comments or questions on that?
Just one, what is the active voter roll now? Is it 50,000 or?
Oh,
I
no.
believe I sent him, it was 72,000.
Okay, so that's not a lot of spare cards.
No, and it could go up, it
Yeah.
could go down, you know.
I was just curious, I didn't know what that number was.
So this number could change, that was based off what I sent him, it was 72,000 something.
Okay, thank you.
Judge,
Yes.
could this be a HAVA eligible expense?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
Good thought, though. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Watts, second by Commissioner Beecham to approve the item as stated. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0. Item number 4 is discuss and consider take action to approve the 10-year tax abatement with Clayton Homes. Mr. Haggard is here from Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce and Business. You want to give us a brief overview?
I would love to, Judge. Thank you for having me today. Mind if I take this off?
No, please, I don't mind.
You mind if I sit? You want me to
No.
stand? It's up to you guys.
Why don't you wait to stand, that way if you don't mind, please?
Yep, no problem. So yeah, thank you for having me this morning. I do want to take a little bit of time and recap the project. I know there's some new faces since 2017 when we first started talking about this project, or it was brought to light. So just a recap, plus you guys have done a few things since 2017, so you might not be that familiar with the contract. But the process that we've gone through with this property is formerly known as the Fleetwood Homes property. And then the most recent tenant was the Atco company, who both those companies manufactured homes out there. So the property is built and designed, its highest and best use is for manufacturing homes out there. So back in 2006, the Wichita Falls Economic Development Corporation purchased that building, and they went on to lease that property. They purchased it from Fleetwood Homes, and they went on to lease that property to the Atco company for the next 10 years. And in 2016, Atco vacated that property and shut that property down. So we of course never transitioned that deed over to Atco. It was always a lease agreement, so the Economic Development Corporation received or continued to have that property. In September of 2017, a purchase sale agreement was agreed upon between the WFEDC and Clayton Homes. Clayton Homes Manufacturing, they manufacture homes. They are a Berkshire Hathaway company, and if you've ever taken a look at their website or go out and look at them, they are an impressive company with good measure behind them, and they treat their employees well. And they do have a flagship out there of a couple different manufacturing facilities, and they wanted to have Wichita Falls as that same flagship or in that fleet anyways. So as they went through their due diligence period, which does include environmental review, it was discovered that there was some environmental issues out on that property. And so as we started to look into how we were going to work that and start to go through that process, Clayton Homes actually terminated their purchase agreement in December of 2018. So when we backed up in January of 18, we hired an environmental consultant called Braun Intertech to take a look at that property, determine really what was going on there, and figure out what we could do with it to get it cleaned up. In July of 2018, we entered into what was called a voluntary cleanup process on that site with TCEQ. Anybody who's worked with TCEQ, when they use the word voluntary, that's pretty loose because you're told to do it. And then you go out and you've got to do it. I guess maybe you just volunteer your time to get it done. But anyway, so we started the volunteer cleanup process on that, which included an MSD, which is a municipal standard designation, that says there are many wells on this property. They show contaminants in them, so they are going to be considered wells that will not be used for potable water forever. Basically, it's a deed restriction that they put on there, kind of a next buyer beware. The good news is that property is served by city water, and so we are able to obviously keep that property in functioning condition through the city water. It's just a restriction on the wells that are out there. So we started the voluntary cleanup process basically July of 2018. We are 98% complete done with that. Matter of fact, we have the certificate of completion at TCEQ waiting for us. There's just some language that has to go on the deed that says, since there was some vapor intrusion on the buildings, we need to make sure that that's stated clearly as a deed restriction. So if you make modifications to existing buildings or build new, the contractor, the owner of the property, needs to be aware that there could be vapor intrusion, and therefore they need to build accordingly or remodel according to those concerns through TCEQ. So we are right there really close to getting this thing wrapped up. Now let me take a step back.
What kind of, is it hydrocarbon vapors, or what are we talking?
You know, all those letters that all the
would have to
different
be.
types of environmental issues that were out there, I don't recall exactly what it
Okay,
was. I can get that for you if you guys want that.
Okay.
But anyway, so as we started going through this process and we felt like we were getting closer in this voluntary cleanup process, we reached back out. I reached back out to Clayton Homes and said, listen, if we go through this process, would you still be interested in the property? And they did some review and they took a look at it and they said, yeah, we would, because we think that Wichita Falls is a place we still want to come. We offered them some incentives back in 2017 that helped get them here, could help get them here. One of those incentives is of course a 10-year tax abatement through the city and the county to make that project happen. And so as we went through the process and went through the new purchase agreement, we did get a purchase agreement signed with them at the end of 2018, looking forward to, or actually, excuse me, the 2019 new purchase agreement was signed, looking forward to a closing date, we thought, yet at the end of 2019. Here we are in 2021. Some of these things have taken a different route when it comes to the cleanup process and understanding what the buyer was buying for the property. But we're very close now, and so the reason I come back before you all, or come to you with this project, is in 2017 and again in 2019, when we wrote the new contract, the city and the county were still involved in a 10-year tax abatement program. Judge Gossam has informed our economic development team that there's a new standard that you prefer to work off of, which is a 7-year tax abatement at 70% and working its way down. I'm here to ask if you would consider the 10-year tax abatement that we originally offered them back in 2017 and 2019, if we can get this thing pushed forward and closed out. Clayton Homes would bring about 180 jobs once they're fully up and scaled in manufacturing with benefits. Jobs ranging from $15 to $20 an hour, obviously some higher paying salaries when it comes to operations manager, plant manager, things like that. But they are good jobs, they are a good company, and we would love to have them as part of our landscape. You all know the cost of maintenance on a property when it's vacant, it's high, and the EDC bears that burden right now, so we would sure like to transfer that deed over to Clayton Homes and make this happen. So that's the request I'm looking for, and an approval today if possible. And I would entertain any questions, or if anybody has anything.
Travis, I've got a question. Sure. One of the ideals that we have followed here on some of these abatements, bear in mind our tax rate, which year one would be compensated, I guess, entirely, but it's made up of 3 components. Our maintenance and operating, our interest in sinking, that's the money we collect and can only go to the bank or our debtors, and third, road and bridge. So when you combined all those monies, they make one tax rate for the county. So when we give that abatement 100%, we have to go somewhere else to find our bank payment. We have to go somewhere else to find our road and bridge funds. A general operating and the M&O account, it certainly can pay, but we're left without when we do that. And so we've taken a different approach or a different look at how to compensate, because, you know, it cost us twice. We abate Clayton INS, we still have to pay the banker. So we have to go get the money and pay when we do that. So I
think that's true in tax increment financing, not in tax abatement. We still collect the tax, there's no deferment of the amount, other than over that scale 10 years, but we don't get less than we're taxing for. In an abatement, whereas tax increment financing, then we're giving away that tax money, and that's where we redrew our line and said on tax increment financing, we will not include interest in sinking and road and bridge because of the laws that define it.
well, but correct me if I'm wrong, but year one, we give 100% away. So we won't collect any INS tax.
No, but we will from there on, you're collective, but you're not decreasing the amount. You're not getting anything for it now along that line, but you will, over those years, build back and get it, but you're not losing anything, you're getting your net amount. So we're not losing any tax money and sending it somewhere else.
I thought we were abating all the county tax year one,
Yes.
and year two, 90%, so we would only receive 10%.
Okay, you're still getting the amount you're getting now. You're not abating the current taxable value. Then you will get decreasing or increasing amounts over the next 10 years. But it doesn't go into what you're talking about, the same as tax increment financing.
We're abating the increase.
No, that's not the way I understand it
Wait a
at
minute,
all.
line C here says only improvements to real property and new equipment brought into the city will qualify for the incentive.
So we're abating the increase, so
Yeah.
we're frozen at the current level.
So, well, let me ask this. What is the value of the property now owned by the EOC and as a vacant building? And will that, I mean, who's paying taxes on it right now?
The EDC pays the property
Okay.
taxes, property maintenance taxes.
What will the value be when it goes from a vacant building to an operating deal?
Better, a lot better.
Will the value change?
I would think it certainly would,
On
because they
transfer.
will be making improvements in capital investment.
So the tax, if I'm understanding this correctly, let's just use some numbers. Let's say right now it's a $100 valuation. When it gets used, it's $200. So when the transfer is made, we will collect full property taxes on the 200. But what we will abate is what is done to it and what's brought in after that. Is that correct?
No, not exactly.
Well, that's what I'm reading here.
Okay, when they, right now, it's at a level you're collecting the taxes on. If they add another 100 to it, then you're gonna have an increasing term of tax collection on that. First year is 0, then it goes 10, 20, 30,
Yeah.
40, 50.
So,
Well, I
Barry,
guess-
in your example, the hundred is always paid taxes on. The increase of the additional 100
Is abated.
would be abated.
And that's what I read here. Well, what is the value of the building? We're looking at the numbers on the contract here of asking price real personal property 2.1 million. What's it appraised at today as an empty building? Is that the appraisal?
I mean, with the address, you can look it up.
Yeah.
But that's inconsequential. It's not gonna gain any value until somebody occupies it and starts.
Well, and that's my question. What is the value the day they move in?
It's what's set on the tax rolls.
Yeah, and I don't know what that is. I don't-
And
it
we'll
doesn't.
continue to receive that plus
Yeah.
10% each year moving forward.
So it's being taxed right now
Full tax
as an operating, working facility and not as a second use deal because it's vacant? That's really my question.
Well, the
Right now, it'd be
question,
vacant.
I think the question is, what Barry's trying to say is, if it's on the tax rolls today for $100,000, they move in and occupy, they've done nothing to defer those taxes by new equipment, they just occupy the
They
building.
just take possession.
And it goes to $1 million property. Are we still receiving the tax on that $1 million because it didn't involve any new purchases, added equipment?
No, 'cause you
That's
changed
really
the
my
use.
question, yeah.
We're only abating from the current value upwards. So we keep the
Yeah.
tax that we're collecting now.
Well, and that's the
Well,
question.
but it
Is
hasn't-
it appraised today as a secondary use building? Because when something becomes vacant, that value changes from when it's an operating,
Right.
functioning
But
facility.
Barry,
And that's my question.
Read that again, what we're gonna, what.
Well, we're gonna abate the improvements
Yeah.
and the additions with machinery and, the way I understand. If you go out there and build onto the building, we're gonna abate that. If you move in a $100,000 machine, we're gonna abate that. But the building as it sits today, we're gonna be taxing it at the rate we're at today, if I'm understanding it correctly.
We're not giving away what we have now.
Yeah, but
We're
I'm
only giving-
curious as to whether it's already been reduced because, anytime you go to a secondary or use, it usually,
Because you don't have personal property in there, the equipment, all of that kind of stuff. So the gross value.
yeah. So anything that,
Now, but the
yeah.
building and the land value probably has remained constant.
Okay, I was just curious, but, yeah, we're only
Do you know
abating,
the- do you
we're
know the
abating
answer
from
to
where
that?
we are.
Do you understand that back and forth?
Yeah, I understand where the question is. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I
There's
did,
a
I just,
district
and
requirement.
I should've looked and I didn't. and,
Well, I just, going off of what Barry's saying, a commercial building, I had a commercial building that was priced low, became under use, and it jumped about $60,000. In this instance, would that $60,000 be included into the original price because I did nothing?
Or is that an
I didn't
abated?
add on, I
Yeah.
didn't bring in new equipment, I didn't anything.
Or is that
No
abated?
change, it
Yeah.
just,
That is my question.
yeah.
And then I just have to look at what the appraised value is. I'm familiar with the building and, boy, it would be great to have it. We're all about having it, offering jobs and
Right.
and being on the tax roll. I'm just curious about the starting number, I think, is
Well,
the,
that's constant,
yeah,
unless, and we already know that values are growing.
yeah.
So then that value was just released.
Where was it?
At any rate, now, the other thing I want to be sure that is stated here, I've asked you all to consider this as we entered into this negotiation before we changed our tax abatement policy. We did the same thing on the building, S5 in Iowa Park, as we had an agreement with them. But any new prospects, then we've channeled them under the new process.
Well, I think reviving an old deal does put this in a special position. I don't really have a problem with, trying to work with the deal that was made early on, because through no fault of anyone, we had environmental issues that we didn't expect, so.
I do have a question for you. On the sheet here, on your cash for jobs portion of it, is that all paid by your agency?
Yes, the EDC funds the cash for jobs. The good news about that is the job has to be created and in place for 6 months before there's any type of reimbursement. So it's what we call a back-loaded incentive. So it has to be performed on first, but that does come through the EDC. Yes, sir.
And another one there on the property tax abatement, have y'all not done any, it says unknown in 10 years, y'all haven't done any kind of estimates or anything on projected what that's gonna cost?
Projected the capital improvements.
Yeah, the capital improvements
Like the
and what the property, what kind of money is the county actually abating? I mean, I think that would have been surely there's been some projections done of what they think that building's gonna be equipment-wise, what they think it's gonna be worth up and running. They gotta have some projections on it.
They did early, I think in 17 they did. If I recall, that at that time Kevin Pearson at the Economic Development Team was working through that, and it seemed like I recalled I think a $2.5 or $3 million capital improvement campaign to the facilities, bringing in some new equipment, things like that. I have not received an updated number on that from Clayton Homes yet.
Yeah.
They did have a representative, both from their environmental team and their top executives were out to view the property about 2 months ago now, and they said they were impressed with the condition of the property. They're still wanting to move forward, but I do not have any of the updated numbers from them. As soon as they get them, I'll make sure and let you all know.
And the reason I ask that, as far as your agency goes, we love new business. I mean, I'm probably the most new business person in here. I want to bring business. But what do y'all do to really tie them into staying here? Longer than that 10 years, longer than the time when they run out of getting money from your agency and tax abatements.
Yeah, well, we just hope that we can provide them with the type of community and the quality workforce that keeps them here. There's no guarantees, and Clayton Homes, they had one of their best years. They had their best year in 2019 that they've had since they've been in business since the early 70s. And so they are a solid company. However, any type of downturn can always mean a factory closes down and takes off. We make no guarantee behind it. There's nothing really that ties them to the incentives or anything that we offer them. We just hope that we can serve their needs as a community.
And they're buying it from the EOC.
Yes.
And EOC funded the cleanup, I assume.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. So the good news, projects that the Pamlico Air project that came and hopefully this Clayton Homes project that we can get closed, the purchase price of the property nearly covers the incentive cost. So they almost finance their own incentives in that. And that's something that helps us sleep at night, that we're not putting a bunch of cash out of pocket without them having some skin in the game, so to speak.
And Mickey, to your point, and to the 2019 record year, that is the largest increase we discussed last Tuesday at Appraisal District. So people are selling their homes and trending towards mobile home or mobile home facilities to live for a duration of time. So they anticipate that market to be hot for several years.
I think so. This real estate market's nuts. I wish we knew what if we had the address, we could probably type it in and get the appraised value on that deal.
I know the address. if you'd
Is
like
that Old Burke Road?
I probably can't, but somebody can.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2,400.
Type it in and see. I could do it, but it'd take about 45 minutes.
Website, WAED.
And there might be profanity involved in the process.
I understand.
I'll get it.
And tell me, Travis, again, that,
2,400.
2,400.
Burnett Road.
Well, it's interesting, I just happened to drive by that property last week and noticed the building looks good.
Yeah.
It really looks good. I saw it as I went by and I thought, wow, that's shaped up. It looks a lot better than it did a number of years ago.
And they've always done a good job keeping up with the yard and the
Oh,
grass.
yeah,
There's a lot there to mow too.
And I didn't even know this was on the agenda, and I just happened to notice, I thought, when I drove by, I thought, that building looks good. So,
Yeah. Our operating costs on that facility are close to 140,000 a year, just
Ooh.
with everything that we have to do. And
Yeah.
so we would like to pass that on to the new owner, yeah.
yeah, it's a large property.
is
a large
it,
property.
today it's in the name of the EDC?
Should be, yes. Wichita Falls Economic Development Corporation.
Is that a 20-acre unit? Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yes.
Okay, go down to
Yeah.
roll value history. So Barry, it's on the rolls. Back in, just to give you an idea, in 2007, it was on the rolls for $1.2 million.
Okay.
Today, it's on the roll for $1.3 million.
Okay, so that's, I didn't know if there would be a major reduction when it, like, as I said, goes
There
to
has
secondary
never been a
use.
reduction.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That's land and improvements?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's,
So that would be our baseline.
okay, now let's go back to our discussion. So 1.2 would stand as with full taxation.
Well, 1.3.
Well, 1.3, whatever the current deal is, and then anything that's added to that from here on would go to the abatement program. That, okay, that's,
Except the increase to 1.3.
yeah, I understand that, but yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I'd make a motion to approve this,
I would
Judge.
Second.
that.
Good numbers. And jobs.
Well, we're selling it for 2.1.
No, that was the offer price. The original contract back in 17 was for 1.5.
Okay.
The current contract is 1.1.
1.1, okay.
And you know, Judge, I'd make a caveat to that. It doesn't have to be in the motion, but just so everybody understands. I do think our new schedule that we're talking about is good, but I think this is a special situation because this has been ongoing and through no fault of anybody, we had environmental cleanup. So I think we can give this one consideration to get it done.
And this is a great facility.
And I'm not taking away from what our new plan is to do that, but I think this is a special
It'd be great
special
to
deal.
get that back in operation.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
number of jobs that's bringing, good paying jobs, very
Yeah.
good paying jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, we always look for those higher paying jobs with benefits, so
Yeah.
it gives that employee more discretionary income to spend here in our communities. So those are the things we target.
All right, any comments from anyone in the audience or anyone on the phone? Okay. Have a motion by Commissioner Muller, second by Commissioner Beecham to approve the tax abatement agreement with Clayton Homes. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you,
all.
Drew.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate you guys' support in all of our efforts. And 2020 was a killer year for me because I'm an extrovert and I love being out with people.
Uh-oh.
And while I did get to see my kids quite a bit, they're not always the people I need to see. So getting back out here and seeing you all working with you and seeing those great recognitions this morning, that's inspiring. And we realize we're a small cog in the wheel when it comes to community and economic development. And you all contribute to it and the police force by keeping us safe and everybody out there. So we really do thank you guys for the partnership and always being there for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trey.
When it moves forward, we all benefit.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Item number 5, receive an update on the law enforcement center and elevator project. Commissioner Beecham.
Okay, elevator projects, they're patching the elevator shaft right now, cleaning up all the holes and getting it ready to receive the new elevator. They'll be starting frame out of the fur downs and everything that we approved a couple of weeks ago, this week. So that project's moving forward. Law Enforcement Center, we should be a week away from substantial completion, but we agreed to push that date into mid-May for no additional dollars. The reason being is we've run into a couple of items dealing with ADA compliance that will have to be addressed before we can get our certificate of occupancy. One of the items should be taken care of by GTL. We're working through that right now. The way they mounted the charger boxes for the pad devices, they're not ADA compliant. The other item is with the ADA showers in the pods. The original intent was to have shower curtains that were on breakaway rods. The initial walkthrough, that was not acceptable, so we've had to go back and approve doors for those ADA showers only. We'll see that IOCC come through next week. I've already approved it so we don't get behind, even though I don't have the IOCC in front of me. I think it's going to be about $16,000 added to the contract to make that improvement. But other than that, everything's on track, moving forward.
Any questions or comments?
Do we stay dry in the elevator shaft?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
That's
no flooding. I wish I could say that about all of our other buildings.
Yes.
Because we had flooding in Burke, we had flooding in Precinct 1, or not flooding, but water in the building in Burke and Precinct 1.
After some new roofs.
Yeah, I don't think either one of them was actually related to the new roof directly. So we're still looking at the Burke issue. I think I've got a solution or a trial fix. We went over there while it was still raining and kind of looked at what was going on. I think what's happening when you get very heavy rains is the water is blowing up under the flashing, or over the flashing and into the hollow and dripping down through the window frame, because it's only leaking out that second window. So I think we can come in and fill the corrugations on that metal that are just open, gaping open, and I think we'll stop it. Because everything on that window's sealed. It's been caulked. There's nothing.
I have a little bit different theory, but I'll talk to you later about it.
Well, yeah, you can tell me. I'll be glad to hear it. So.
Water is an interesting subject, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can go places you would never
Well, that's the
dream.
only thing that's open that I can see. But it's a low-cost try.
Anything on the disaster declarations, the two we have in place? Let's move on to anyone in the audience. Anyone on the phone?
Do we get our zipper today?
You get what?
No, it's Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. All right, well, I guess we'll start zipping on Wednesday then.
Yeah, Leon was ready this morning. He texted me between 6 and 6:30.
They're chomping at the bit, they're ready to go now.
Yeah.
We're all standing by. I think we'll make good progress when it
I
gets here,
think
though.
so too.
Yeah.
We're ready to run it, and we did add an additional road, or actually 2 roads for zipping that we didn't have earlier. But it's good stuff though. That's really all I have. That's the question I got.
Commissioner Finnegan.
Well, because of our milling machine delay, we have already had to start the dreaded mowing and weed eating. So we've this good rain has really sparked up the grass and the weeds, so we've already started mowing. I hope we can keep that up while we're doing the milling, at least get some of it done, but that's kind of where we stand. Just trying to keep our roads and bar ditches looking good.
Commissioner Ball?
Couple of things. One is, last week, like many people in our community, I finally got my vehicles up to date on getting the current license tags on. But I wanted to congratulate our tax office. They did a very good job, very timely, and just had no problem whatsoever. So I would say to anybody that's not been through that, be patient. They are doing a good job, and it feels good to have that caught up after languishing for a while. But those folks just, I was able to get in, get right out. Everything went well, so you know, there are probably still some people who hadn't done it, need to get it done because the moratorium's off, and there will be officers looking for that. Other thing is, Judge, and I know this magazine wasn't placed on my desk today because of the cover on the front page, but it has special meaning to me because I know this family. Bryce Moore is one of our state directors for the field staff for Texas Farm Bureau. Lives in Vernon, known him for a long time, know his family. And this is such a neat success story that they were able to adopt those three young boys. And I've been around those boys at different occasions, and they're just so much pleasant. They're very pleasant to be around. It's just a great situation. I can't think of a better family. Just goes to show there's a lot of people in our community that really make a difference and really step up, and they did. And I tease Bryce because every time I see somebody with a young male child coming along, I always tell them, I said, the only problem I've got is, I said, I see these boys and they're all very athletic, and one of them could sure be a running back, and I sure wished y'all lived in Iowa Park. So, just a little personal gig, but really, that really made me proud to see that. This is a tremendous family and doing great things, and known Bryce and his wife for a long time. And other than that, just we've got another disaster in the making that is going to affect our agricultural industry. If we get to 32 degrees tomorrow night, it's going to be a disaster. We've got headed out wheat, and it could just take it out, and we've seen that happen in the past. And I don't have any this time, so
We saw it happen last year.
you doggone right. We've seen it happen, but I'm thinking about my neighbors because after the turnaround last week with the rain and the cool weather, we thought, oh, it was a sigh of relief. Boy, life is a roller coaster, guys, and it continues to be. So we're going to be thinking about our producers, which has a tremendous economic impact on Wichita County. And so we'll be watching that thermometer pretty close tomorrow night. So please stay up there about 35, because even at 33 or 34, the low areas will see freeze damage, and it is a very, very bad time for that to happen. So
any word on all the trees that look so?
you know, one of the great things, Mark, is I had some shrubs I'd cut way back in my yard just to reshape them. And it scared me to death when we had that freeze, but they've all got green leaves on them. They're coming back.
That, Barry, that
Not everything is,
that.
but a lot are. And it's going to be a long summer getting them back to where they need to be. It certainly slowed the process down, but I've had several people tell me that there are numerous trees that don't look good. I'm not a botanist. What's that?
Did our orchards take a hit?
Well, not so much as we know yet, but we should know in the next week or two kind of what the status is. My pecan trees are leaved out, look good. I don't know about the peach trees.
Driving around town, it's like hit and miss.
Oh, I know. Some of them are just devastated, and some of them are looking pretty good. So, but it'll be a long summer recovery. We need some water through the summer to get our landscapes back. But people don't understand, I think, a lot of times, unless you've done one lately, what it costs to do a landscape.
Oh, yeah.
That is a tremendous investment. If you take that all across this city and across this county, you're talking about big numbers to replace a bunch of stuff. So we're hoping for the best, but so limited good news, I guess, on that. We'll see. And I don't know if we do get into the low 30s tomorrow night, I'm not sure what that'll do. It probably won't help, but anyway, let's hope it all greens up. Hope so. Anyway, thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Wallace.
We talked about the milling machine. I wanted to, and I asked Willie and Tracy, Nancy, to give us agreement on our roofing out at Electra, and I've really had concerns over going this direction. And just a little bit of what we've encountered up to this date. Tracy, did you see what we were able to do, or if you had time?
I looked at those briefly. The problem is, anything that's the actual contract, we don't have a photocopy of that. If you'll notice in that document, it talks about in specific information on the preceding page or a front page or something like that, so I'm gonna need to try to get that from Parsons. I don't have an actual contractual terms part of that document.
They're supposed to start out there this week.
Yeah. And Willie, you're not setting on that document, are you? That you would have that Tracy needs? We wouldn't have that, the contractual terms.
Not sure, Jeff. I remember the court passed that, but I don't know if it was based on just the actual cash values that had been confirmed by TAC.
Right. So in discussing with Commissioner Fincan the cost of the metal roof, I hate to veer away from a metal roof there, and of course unlike our other offices, if I do have penetrations or have water leaks, I have offices in there that are going to be impacted negatively for sure. And, I have a brown roof today that makes up the facade of the building and very attractive. And I hate to do something that negatively impacts that. So I need to get Tracy whatever to find out I think there could potentially be a savings to just put a metal roof back on the building. And there are areas over our shop that do need it. Now, our building doesn't leak otherwise, but there are some dings or problems caused from something, I'm not sure, but there is over the shop area something that could desperately need to be replaced, but the whole roof replaced would be ideal.
I just got through pricing on a 2,000 square foot building. The metal cost was significantly greater than a traditional architectural shingle. The other cost that gets you is what that does on your property insurance, because it changes the building value significantly. So when you're paying for a replacement, I'm thinking when I looked at added better than $100,000 to the building's value.
Wow.
To over-insure it over a period of years, that the rebuild value, if you went back and had to do new, changing that roof. So it's significant.
But now, today I have a metal roof.
Yeah.
And a roof that doesn't leak. And just the concept of penetrating that roof multiple times and then putting plastic over that metal, it doesn't seem to make sense to me. And
So
That's what everyone approved, though. I mean, they.
Sure.
That was what was presented and approved, that all the occupied buildings would get the Duralast roof. And non-occupied buildings would go back metal.
And I can certainly forego the carports.
Non-occupied would go back metal?
Yeah.
So, does that mean my shop, the meeting shop in Burke, Precinct 2, it would be considered a non-occupied, correct?
Your
The,
shop, I mean, it's,
the one we have meetings in,
that's an occupied, we consider that an occupied building.
that's an occupied. So what would be the determination? I could see the office being an occupied building, but,
Carports.
so equipment barns would be non-occupied?
Yeah.
Shops, non-occupied? Or what?
Well, shops, I mean, typically have people in them.
The reason I ask that is I've never heard that side of it before.
Well, that was.
And I've heard you say-
Each commissioner approved their
Yeah.
own, so.
Right. And I had talked to you here
Yeah.
several weeks or a month ago about the shop, that steep slope roof I have on that, the old workshop, about not putting that Duralast roof on it
Right.
because of the aesthetics of it. And you said you were gonna check with them and get back with me. I hadn't heard anything on, if they'd ever gave you any kind of answer on that.
No, I haven't.
Because I probably would like to fall back on that one and still get an answer from them on that one. Because it's so steep that it'll change the aesthetics of the building so much.
Well, each of those roofs that have the Duralast, the Duralast was ordered for those buildings specifically. It was made to fit, so I don't know if we're too late in the game.
But didn't you say that's welded together, Mickey?
It is.
Mhm.
Well,
I'll see what we can find out and determine. And there's $72,000 allotted for my project. And like I say, we could certainly forego anything, and I think, I mean, I don't want to, and use this opportunity to clean up. We've got other issue that's gonna have to be addressed as well, but if we're gonna have to take the facade off of some of that and things, I'd just as soon
well, I'll
do
give
it.
you all the general manager of Parsons and let y'all deal with it.
Okay. And Mickey, when, just a question for me, I encountered yesterday and never thought of. So you've got a metal building and it's a shop and you spray foam it. How's that metal replaced once that happens?
Pretty.
Tricky?
It's a lot of work. It's just more labor intensive to strip it off. You actually have to go on the inside and cut all those seams to pull those sheets off. It's pretty labor intensive.
And then reapply, I assume,
Yeah.
after a year.
Well, it'll come off with the metal,
Yeah.
so you lose all your insulation if you do
Yeah.
that.
That
But
was
it is-
one of the reasons why we looked at occupied buildings going with the Duralast, is you didn't have to take the existing roof off, and you got the added insulation from the Duralast, so. But that, well, remember right, that was not my first choice, so I voted no against that, so.
All right. I think everybody's going to West Texas County Visitors Commissioners Conference.
I am not,
You're not.
no.
All right. West City going, it breaks up at noon on Friday. So we won't have a work session for bills on Friday. So we'll just review those either over the weekend or on Monday. Get back into that. Second thing, Helly Hog Hunt is coming up this weekend out at Trusty.
Starts Thursday afternoon, I think.
Okay. You gonna help with that, or?
That's my plan.
Okay.
Don't know exactly when, but we got so many other things going on. Kind of want to be here to help get the zipper project going and some other things. And I'm good on my CEUs, so it just seemed like a chance to stick around, do some other things.
And we'll, I think Tuesday they're having that early bird stuff that's more on the budget. I don't think we can get into too much budget information. I'm trying to meet Senate bill too. Next week, we'll start back to having departmental budget meetings and finish those up. And, like I say, so far, we haven't had, anything come in, outlined, the tax assessor asked for 2 additional personnel. That's in that, and treasurer is asking again for that other person for his office. So that's done. I spent last week, Monday through, supposed to be Monday through Thursday, but it was Monday through Friday with the Texas legislature. And I jokingly said to Commissioner Fincannon, I wasn't with 181 of my best friends that didn't seem to like me down there. But Commissioner Hall reminded me that's kind of true everywhere, so.
Well, that can be, it can be.
But what is sad is there is an antagonistic relationship between the Texas legislature and city and county officials, and not much better for schools. The efforts of last week, they passed Senate Bill 10, which was sponsored by Senator Betancourt out of Fort Bend County, at the prodding and urging of the Lieutenant Governor. And what's hard to follow in that, with that bill, if the House goes along with it, then we will not be able to go down and talk to the legislature about property tax. It's amazing to me, and Commissioner Muller said this morning, I can't imagine telling our constituents they couldn't come talk to us about something. But you wouldn't be able to come down if the county was paying your expense. Luckily, I've been around long enough. The county pays very few expenses for me, and none of it for last week being there. The things they're doing in the way of looking at changing of elections and voting, it's amazing they're doing that because they didn't like the outcome of an election. I thought Texas went fine. I don't know of anybody citing or getting prosecuted for any kind of voter irregularities or fraud in the whole state, but we are highly interested in that. We're not addressing election equipment that needs to be updated. And I would have thought the biggest, freshest event would have been the loss of power in over 70% of the state. Didn't hear a lot of discussion on that. In fact, what was amazing on the news in Austin was people needed to set their thermostats higher because they were already having trouble maintaining the grid. That to me would be my #1 priority, I would think, to work out. The other thing, the legislature is continuing its, you gotta do something about property values. Well, they are already anticipating enough increase in property values across the state to raise an additional $5.5 billion to offset the state share of what it would pay to school districts. And what people don't realize is if we get an increase like we did in property values, the tax rate automatically goes down. And I know when you get the sticker shock of what your house was worth and you got it in the mail, probably Saturday, if you're selling, it looks great. If you're trying to maintain, it doesn't look so great. And people over 65 have some options they can take. The good news might be in that a penny's worth of tax is going to be worth more than it was this last year. So we may be able to adjust what, at least I've told you all to anticipate from my budget, is a 2-cent tax increase. Those pennies are worth more, that may be more than we need to do that.
And don't forget, this chamber lowered the tax rate last year.
Yes, sir.
One of the few in this entire area that I know of.
And, you know, we've saw those articles addressing complaints with the increased value, but can you imagine had it been the opposite, decreased value? I mean, you talk about your taxes going up to maintain what,
That's what I'm afraid, when this artificial boom goes out, what's gonna happen?
Texas has been historically sound, not like California with prices that were unachievable ever, but hopefully, you know, we maintain through that 2007 and 8 dilemma, and hopefully we'll be able to ride this through too.
Let's hope.
It is serious. I brought you all back a legislative directory, and as you see things where it does help. There was a bill I testified on that the trucking industry, working with one of the senators out of the Panhandle, wanted, you know, their overload permits. They still agreed to those, but they wanted to do away with the $15,000 bond per vehicle. Well, you think, okay, well, it does cost them some money. Well, the neat thing in there, if we go after that bond because they've damaged our roads, if they lose that bond, they lose the permit. So all of a sudden it becomes a great leverage to stay out of the courts. And otherwise, the only way we get our roads, possibly some remittance from them, is to go to court every time. That would be an incredible delay. As we look at some of the solar farm coming in, we've already talked to them about road damage and repairs and things like that. That's part of the agreement coming in. We want that agreed upon, because those will be some heavy loads coming in on those roads and some things. And they kept talking about roads. When I wrote to Senator Selinger, who was a bill sponsor, Senator Nichols, who was the Transportation Committee chair, who was a former commissioner of highways and roads for the state of Texas, just said, bridges, don't forget bridges. Big truck goes across that bridge. That's not like potholes or chunks in a road. That all of a sudden changes everything from the access to a real severe thing. It may isolate somebody to get ambulance and fire service. And so it's important that we keep a leverage in. So there was amazing response out of judges and commissioners, and they changed the bill. That stayed in it. They did make it easier. Everything for a trucking company will be posted on TxDOT's website or through DMV, and each truck will still be required to carry a copy of the permit and bond in their truck, but they don't have to mail them to each county and do that. So that there were some good things coming out of that. I testified on what they were jokingly calling the Woody Gossip poster child bill, on the supplement for county judges. They realigned it to where it's, instead of 40% of your functions, but now it's 18% of your time for functions. Still no list of what functions are, but it did bring that more in line with the percentage of pay. So the question is whether it's 18% of a 40-hour week or a 20-hour week, or in our case, it's more of a 50 or 60-hour week. But either way, I think I'm in good shape for qualifying, and I appreciate the County Court of Law judges sharing with me some of the additional things that make that even more viable and realistic to receive that. So, but it is discouraging to see the activity. Did meet with our new District 68 rep, and he's I've known him from years ago. He's an attorney out of Bowie. David seems very organized, has good staff. Visited with Senator Springer on several different things, and we still have some we're not quite together on a couple of them, and I don't know if we will get together. But pay attention to what's out there on that listserv, and don't hesitate to respond, it does make a difference. Anything else, anyone? All right, it is 10:49, and we are adjourned.